friends, welcome back to my channel. I have been wanting to film a non-beauty favorites for a very long time, and I told you guys I last did one like back in August, and I had said that, you know, I'd keep doing them if you like them, but they probably wouldn't be super frequent. And then all of a sudden I realized I had a ton of stuff I wanted to talk to you about. So I suggest you pull up a chair, get comfortable, because there are a lot of things I want to share with you that are not beauty favorites. Okay, so the first things we'll start with are TV shows. There are two TV shows that I just want to give a shout out to. The first is Survivor. So I'd say like a couple of years ago, Ben and I got back into watching Survivor together. I had kind of fallen off of it. I was really into Survivor when it first was airing, and I'd say like right around the time I was in, I don't know, mid high school, so maybe like senior year, I probably stopped watching it consistently and then stopped following it altogether. Well, then the past couple of years when Ben and I started watching it again, we kept having these conversations that, you know, he always said like, I feel like Survivor is not as difficult as it used to be, and the show used to be about surviving, and now it's all about social things. And I always argued against him. I was like, I feel like because we watch Naked and Afraid, which is a show we love, I said, I feel like our perspective on Survivor is really skewed because, of course, when you look at Naked and Afraid, where you literally have nothing, no clothes, like you honestly gotta have nothing to work with, of course everything outside is a survival-based show is going to look like a cakewalk. So we kept talking about it, and then finally I said to him, I was like, you know, I want to go back and I want to rewatch the first season. Like, I want to prove you wrong. I want to do all of that. And so I had like tried to figure out where I could find it. And then I realized Hulu had like a mass number of the Survivor episodes. So I was like, let's just do a month of Hulu. And this was like back in October. And we watched the first season in like one weekend, and I was addicted. I was like, oh man, like I forgot how much I liked these shows and all of these seasons, and there are so many that I haven't watched. So I became fixated, and Survivor for me is a really good show to have on when I'm doing grading or when I was doing graduate school work, because it's basically like the same formula episode to episode where like you can pay attention, but you also don't need to be paying like full attention to it. Well, long story short, I literally watched season 1, and then they on Hulu don't have seasons 2 to 11. I don't know why, but then it literally runs from 12 to 32. Watched them all. I have watched them all. And I have since started to do interlibrary loan for any of the other seasons that Hulu didn't have. It's been an addiction, and I just really enjoy it. And to see the show evolve the way it has, I personally still think that it's a difficult show. I still think they have a hard time surviving. I just don't think they focus on that anymore, because if you watch the older episodes, it's kind of boring how much time they spend like at the challenges. The challenges are much more basic than they were back, than they are compared to now. So I don't know, I really enjoyed it. And if you're somebody who hasn't watched Survivor, or you haven't like watched it, you watched it sporadically the way I did, I would highly recommend checking it out, because it really has been so enjoyable, and I love it. The other show that Ben and I have been watching together is an Amazon Prime show. It's Sneaky Pete. It is a show with, his name is Giovanni, last name I'm blanking on. I've seen him throughout my life, but I can't like pinpoint things that I have seen him in, and I like him as an actor. Ben wanted to get into it because it has one of the main characters from Breaking Bad. So I watched it, and I wasn't like super invested in it, but it's really interesting. It's basically about this guy who gets out of jail for being involved in like being a con artist, and gets himself tripped up with basically like a thug and like a ringleader who he shouldn't have gotten himself involved with, and tries to dupe him and is unsuccessful. So when he tries to reacclimate back into his world after getting out of prison, his brother calls him and lets him know that basically this thug that he had been involved with was asking for, I think it's like $100,000. And so he kidnaps his brother and says like, I'm going to keep torturing your brother until I get this money. So he basically goes undercover as a con against this family that is the family of his cellmate, and his cellmate was estranged from his whole extended family. And so he's pretending to be his cellmate. And it's very interesting, and it's just a different world that I don't know a lot about. So I've really enjoyed it. There are only 10 episodes in the first season, and we're on episode 9. It's one of those shows that we haven't wanted to binge watch, which I'm good with, because the episodes are so rich and they're like 40 minutes in length that I really have enjoyed like slowly grazing through it compared to like binge watching Survivor. So it's definitely a very intricate and interesting storyline, and I'd highly recommend it for someone who's into that actor or that kind of premise because it's really, really interesting. Okay, keeping with like the video category, there are these passes that I currently have. This is the Regal Best Picture Film Festival sponsored by Amazon Studios. This is something that I have the Regal app and I love going to the movies. It's by far one of my like top 5 favorite activities. And I know it might be a weird thing, but I just am transcended at the movie theater. I grew up doing it with my family, like every Saturday, pretty much through high school we did this. We would go on Saturdays to 4 o'clock mass, we'd eat dinner together at a restaurant, and we'd go to the movies. And I love the movies. I really do. It's something that I want to do with my kids, and I just enjoyed that tradition. When I go home still, my parents still do this together. I'll go with them whenever I want to on Saturdays. It just is a wonderful thing. I love the movies. Well, Regal, my movie theater, was doing basically every Oscar movie of the year nominee. They essentially are showing all of those movies. There are 4 movies a day from February 17th to the 26th. And the pass was $35, but there are 8 movies that you get to see. And there were 6 of the nominees that I hadn't seen. So we're talking Moonlight, Hell or High Water, Hacksaw Ridge, Manchester by the Sea, Lion, La La Land, Arrival, Hidden Figures, and Fences. I had seen Fences and Hidden Figures, but the other ones I wanted to see, but just hadn't had a chance to go to the movies and see them. So this is my break this week. So I was like, $35, even if you only see 3 movies, the pass pays for itself. But because I'm on break, I plan on seeing pretty much all of them. So I convinced Ben to do it with me, even though I would have been totally fine going alone. There were a lot of movies on here he wanted to see. So it was a really good deal, and I've been really enjoying it. So far, we have seen Manchester by the Sea, which has been my favorite. We also saw Hacksaw Ridge, and then tonight we're going to see Moonlight. So, I don't know. It's a really good deal, and I thought it was just really well done. I don't know how widespread this was, if it was just like a New England thing or a Regal thing. I'm not sure, but I'm really enjoying it, and it's, I think, a good way to like just spend my break hanging out, seeing some good movies, and sort of just exposing myself to more things. Okay, the last part of this like non-beauty favorites chat I want to have with you guys is about books. I have recently, I want to say like the past month to like 5 weeks, I have been really pushing myself to do a lot more cardio. I do not like to run despite doing track and cross country in high school, and I really can't stand being on any sort of like cardio equipment. But I recently, in the past like 5 weeks, have started doing some cycling. And we're not talking like cycling, class cycling. We're talking like you sit on your butt and like it's the gentle, this kind of pedal motion cycling. And the only reason I'm able to do it, I literally do it from 30 to 45 minutes almost every single day, is because I'm reading. And I can't focus and read school books when I am on the bike because I read it very differently when I'm reading a book that I have to teach to students. So I just was like, all right, well, I'm gonna have to read something, otherwise I won't be able to sit here. So I started picking up just books that I've had, namely my Owl Crate books, the ones that I had gotten in my Owl Crate boxes. And let me tell you, I have been infatuated with those books. I really was kind of lackluster, I think, in my approach with my Owl Crate unboxing, so I don't really think I fully understood what was in each box. It wasn't until I started reading the books where I really found like an appreciation for Owl Crate. I actually re-signed up because I have just been loving the book so much, and it's exposed me to things that I probably wouldn't ordinarily have gotten myself, but have really fell in love with. So the first thing I have is this item called Cereal Box. Now, I have to admit, I don't love this series, but I want to explain what this is because it's actually much more interesting than I ever thought. So in our Owl Crate boxes, they included basically a shout out to an online resource called Cereal Box. And it's spelled like little cereal, not like the stuff that you eat. And essentially the premise of this is they essentially put out seasons of books. So what that means is instead of giving you long novels, these are short little serials, basically episodes that you're supposed to be able to read in 42 to 45 minutes. So there are a number of ways that you can go about reading it. They actually bound one of the books for the Owl Crate boxes, but they don't really do this. They are actually on a PDF, either I think through the app, you download the app and you can read it on there, or you can can print it. I'm not someone who likes to read on a screen, so I would choose to print them. And they basically have different episodes. This remade series is a like post-apocalyptic world where teenagers die all the time, and a couple of teenagers escape and they go back down to Earth to find that it's totally changed, and there's like this robotic enemy. Not really my jam, but the concept I really liked. And I've been looking more into it because it basically reads like a TV show. Like when I finished reading this, I was like, yes, this is a pilot episode to a TV show. It's very novelty, but it has a lot of those TV elements that I think has transcended really well into this type of book series. They have another one that I'm thinking about trying out, which is about like basically, it reminds me of like a Sherlock Holmes fantasy type series. I'll link this down below if you're kind of interested in this type of reading. It's basically like short stories that all build together, or it's kind of like reading longer chapters of a growing story. But there are different ones that they sell. I think there are like 4 or 5 different series that they have on their site. And you essentially can pay for each individual episode, or you can choose to just subscribe for a discounted price for all the episodes that they'll push out. And they say that, I think it comes out every like couple of weeks, there's a new episode for that season. So it's a really interesting concept. I had never heard of something like this. I think it's a different way to take reading on. And I think if you're somebody who's not big into reading, but you want to do more reading because you know it's an important life skill, I think this is a good way to kind of immerse you into the reading world. Right, so the second thing I want to talk about is another book that came in my Owl Crate. This is the Three Dark Crowns book by Kender Blake. This is such an interesting concept. Essentially, as you can see here by the 3 different crowns, there is this futuristic world, or fantasy world, I guess you could call it, where there is a general goddess or queen who is in charge, but she's sort of like this higher being that you don't get to know about. And every so often, there are 3 girls, so basically triplets, that are born, and they're essentially divided by their power. So you have like the poisoners, who are supposed to be really good at like drinking poison and poisoning people. Then you have like the elemental people, and they're someone who should be able to manipulate and work with the different elements like wind, earth, fire, Captain Planet stuff. And then you have this other like category where they essentially are people who become transcended through like these creatures. So they'll basically have like an owl as my creature, let's say, and this owl and I are very connected to each other. It's sort of like an extension of who I am, and the owl is loyal to me, and it's just this one owl and whatever. So these 3 girls are separated by their power and then raised individually by the people in that particular domain. And they're being raised to then, at the age of 16, fight to the death. They're supposed to kill each other, and the girl who wins, basically her group of people, let's say the poisoners, they become the all-controlling group. So it's a very interesting concept, and the story is told from all 3 perspectives, so you have different points of view happening, and I do like that kind of storytelling, but this is just captivating. I was captivated the whole time. It's so interesting, and this idea of, you know, your destiny is laid out for you, and, you know, is this the gift I'm supposed to have, and all of that. It's very interesting. I really enjoyed this, and I'm probably doing a terrible job explaining it, but the only downfall of this that I'm finding is it's going to be a series. That's my biggest complaint about young adult fiction, is that it always becomes a series. And for me, someone who is an avid reader, I probably at any given time are reading 4 or 5 different book series because I'm constantly reading young adult novels, and they just morph into a series. And even though I really do like it, that's the one downfall. So if you're not looking for a book series, don't grab this. But if you want to be sucked in and you like sort of that fantasy and the inner turmoil and all of that, this book has it for you. The last book I want to talk about is arguably one of the best books I've ever read, which is such a bold claim for me, for someone who's done so much reading in my lifetime, but it was Dave Eggers' The Circle. I do not have it with me because I passed it on to my friend. I wanted him to read it, and then I wanted to talk to him about it. But you guys probably have heard about it since it's coming out to be a movie. Emma Watson is going to be the protagonist in there, the female protagonist, and it is just such an interesting book. Ben actually got me into it. He got he got me to order it because it's basically a dystopian story about privacy. And it's about this girl named May who goes to work for a Silicon Valley company, kind of like a Google or an Amazon, and it's called The Circle. And their big argument throughout the whole story is your right to privacy. You know, what information do you think you should be able to withhold from other people? You know, is it your civic duty to share your experiences with everybody at any given moment? And the main protagonist, May, who goes to work there at first, is very much like a private person. She doesn't do a whole lot of social media stuff. She tends to keep to herself, does a good job at her employment, but she's not your typical Circle person because she's not constantly projecting everything about her life and every move she makes and all of this stuff. And eventually she gets sucked in and she buys into this idea that everything I do, everyone else has a right to know about it. Everyone else has the right to know everything that I do and everything that I say and to constantly be monitored. So she ends up wearing this device around her neck that literally lets people at any given moment, it's like basically YouTube Live or Instagram Live or like a never-ending Snapchat Live. People can just jump on and see and hear and experience everything she's experiencing. And she essentially buys into this idea that her life should be documented 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to no end. So I think it's such an interesting story because, to be quite honest, even though this might sound a little dramatic to some of you, I don't think we're that far away from that reality. When I look at the college students I work with and the high school students I work with, they document everything about their lives. I constantly will see kids like at the end of class when they're packing up their stuff, like Snapchat about their life, or they'll like post on Instagram something stupid. Like they literally document so much of themselves that I don't think they would view anything wrong with what this main character goes through or what she chooses to do with her privacy. So I read the book hoping to be able to teach it in my classroom, but I don't think it'll fly because there's a lot of language there, and there's also some sex scenes in there. But in general, I think the premise is so interesting, and I think it is very realistic to the world we live in today. I think there are some people out there who really do foresee this as our future, and I don't think the average person is questioning that anymore. You know, I think about the Amazon Echo, and I think about all this technology that's coming out where essentially is always listening, and people are just blindly buying into that. They're not questioning it. There's not really any like legislature that's really coming up on the forefront of, you know, rules and regulations for this. Like right now, tangent, we'll go there. There was a case in Maine where there was a crime committed and the Alexa recorded it, and they had to decide in that court case whether or not that recording, though not technically asked for, no one asked the Alexa to record it, if that could be used as evidence to help convict this person. So I think we're in a really interesting place in the world right now with the technology, and I don't think that technology is a bad thing, but I think we haven't spent enough time really developing what this technology means for our right to privacy. And so this book, I think, really challenges that concept and makes you think about it in a really interesting way. So highly recommend that, especially if you're going to see the movie. I'd read the book first because I'm sure they're going to have to cut out a lot of stuff that they've included in the book, as any book to movie adaptation would have to do. But I was just captivated the whole time, and I've been trying to talk about it with as many people as I can because I'm just obsessed with it right now, but it hasn't gotten a lot of traction. So I highly encourage you, if you've, of course, read or done any of these things, let me know in the comments below. And if you have any non-beauty favorites that you think I would like, please share them with me. I'd love to hear about them. And I'll talk to you guys in my next video real soon. Bye.